was molested. I was a hoe. I was promiscuous. I was a stripper. I did not value my body. I did not value myself. I'm still struggling to value myself and to value my body. Almost 30 years later, after the event happened, I'm still struggling with the side effects of the traumatic experience that happened to me, just like post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm working on myself to do the healing that I need and soul searching to no longer be a victim to the circumstances that happened to me, but to be a victor, to be an overcomer. 1 out of every 4 girls is molested. 1 out of every 4. And that's a number that I read a long time ago. I'm sure the number is higher by now. And I'm positive that the number is higher. And that's just based on things that are actually reported and incidents that are actually reported. I'm quite positive the number is higher because there's a lot that goes unspoken about. Had my ex-boyfriend in college not told my parents that I was molested, they probably would have never known because I wouldn't have told them. There's a great amount of shame and guilt, fear that's associated with sexual abuse. It's easy to blame yourself. It's easy to find yourself stuck in that situation because even though you don't like being in that situation, you don't know how to get out. You don't know how to talk to anyone about it. You're afraid of what people will think about you, especially when it's been something that's repeatedly happening or something that has repeatedly happened. Then it's easy to conclude in your mind, well, people are going to think I wanted it because I went back, because I kept going back, or because I kept going around this person. But actually, you continue to go around the person because you don't want anyone to think something's wrong. You don't want anyone to see your behaviors and start asking you questions, so you go along to get along like everything's fine. But it actually taught me not to speak up for myself during abuse. I was silent during abuse. I didn't speak up for myself. And I allowed, for a long time, I've allowed myself to be in toxic relationships, unhealthy relationships. You develop low self-worth. You start to think that the only time you have value is when you're being used for some sexual purpose. So after a while, you start to realize that being used for sexual purposes gets you attention. That's about all you need when you have low self-worth, low self-esteem, and you're a victim of sexual abuse. All you really crave is attention. It doesn't matter whether it's negative or positive. And most of the time, you repel positive energy because you don't even know how to handle that because you're so used to negativity that it's a cyclical thing for you just to continue to attract that negativity into your life because that's what you're comfortable with, that's what you're used to. So a lot of times if something better is around, you don't feel worthy of that, and you don't even know how to handle it because you're so used to rejection, neglect, and abandonment. So as a result, you you get into relationships that give you the same thing you're used to getting: neglect, rejection, abandonment, having to prove your love to people, having to prove your worth to people. And then when you've been abused and you've been neglected, well, when you've been abused and no one knows, no one around you has picked up on the fact that something is different, no one around you has picked up on the fact that you might feel a little uncomfortable about going around this person, or that you have withdrawn into a shell and you're not speaking as much, or certain behavior has changed, then you really feel neglected and unvaluable, because people who care about you are supposed to notice those things, right? Now, in fairness to my parents, now that I'm a parent, I understand and realize how you get so caught up in the day-to-day activities between work and cooking and grocery shopping and picking up the kids and running here and there. You barely have time for yourself, time and energy for yourself, let alone the time and energy to really always know and pay attention to what's happening to your children. And in the day and age when I was molested, nobody was talking about it, nobody was verbal about it, everything was sort of hush-hush, and we weren't really checking in on each other emotionally, because that kind of wasn't what was happening with that generation. Now, in this generation, we all know more, we're more open about sexual abuse and assault, and we're encouraging people to speak up about it. But 28 years ago, when it was happening to me, that wasn't the case. And it's still challenging to talk about it. I still have repercussions from it sexually. And one of the things that my abuser did to me regularly was perform oral sex on me. And even as an adult that enjoys oral sex, I still really cannot have an orgasm from someone performing oral sex on me. And it certainly hasn't been because I haven't gotten good oral sex, because I have. But something mentally and physically is still blocking me as a result of the sexual abuse that was perpetrated against me. Now, I'm not sitting here sharing this so that people will feel sorry for me. I know there are steps that I need to take for my recovery, and I'm making those steps. I'm sharing some of the things that I've gone through in order to help other people that may be going through some of the same things. When men refer to women as a hoe, I want you to instead look at her as a young girl who was violated, abused. Her innocence was taken from her as a young girl, and as a result, she doesn't value her body. She doesn't value herself, and she's acting out in an attempt to heal those wounds from childhood, but she doesn't realize that the way that she's acting out is only basically creating more wounds and more damage. The bottom line is that we're all hurting. We all have wounds of something that happened to us in childhood or something that occurred in our lives. We all have wounds, and we all have ways that we act out. Some people are workaholics to avoid the pain and hurt that they feel or the neglect. Some people drink it away. Some people smoke it away. Some people sniff it up their nose. Some people overeat their feelings. Some people become sex addicts. Some people become love addicts, aka some people become hoes. What I'm hoping is that instead of us looking at each other with negative ill will, animosity, and just plain old disdain for each other, instead of we can big each other up and help love each other through the mess, because all of us are a mess in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and we all need each other. So if we could just learn to start looking at each other as wounded, hurting individuals and be patient and loving and supportive with each other through our mess, then maybe we can all get to a place of healing. But continuing to call women bitches and hoes and thoughts, and continuing to violate women, mistreat women because you feel you don't see any value either. Like, let's really look at the bigger picture. How can we have a strong race when the men don't value the women? When the women don't value the women? And the men don't value the men?